And welcome to chapter 2. Going to continue on looking at After Effects, but we're going to get actually applying some different animation and skills other than just looking at the application itself. So we're going to go ahead, and this first video is going to be looking at layers. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new composition. And again, starting with a good habit, I'm going to name this Chapter 2, since that's the chapter we're currently in. And I'm going to keep all the default settings, but I always like to look it over because sometimes I do change project settings. So I'm at my standard high def with 1920 by 1080, 23 frames per second, and I actually changed the duration not too long ago to 15 seconds. And I'm going to keep that. So let's go ahead and create our new project, which starts our first composition. Although this composition consists of nothing, even though I've got the white background that's really transparent. That's just if I were to work and wanted to see something of an animation or text or a layer on top of instead of a transparent background. But we're going to go ahead and start with layers. So again, remember, layers consist of all sorts of things that make up a composition. So I'm going to show you how to create a layer. So I'm down here in our timeline panel. I'm going to go ahead and right click, and it's going to bring up this dialog box, and at the very top we see new, and if I go over from new, I'm going to notice all these layers I can select from. So there's quite a few. Other than layers that we can import into After Effects, we can also create layers within After Effects. So the few layers that we are going to work with within chapter 2 are going to be our text, solid, and even later on our null objects. So before we get into text, I'm going to create a solid background, but instead of doing it from right here where I showed you with right clicking within the timeline panel, I'm going to go up to our menu application right up here, and we notice that there's our layer. And if we drop down, we are going to see the new. And if we go over, we're going to see same options. Okay, so we've got our text, solid, and all these layers. And again, get in the habit of looking, because most likely in a project you might create a few different solids and text. So it's good to know the keyboard shortcut. So Control Y would be that. But I'm just going to go ahead and click, and we're going to create our solid layer. And it comes up with our solid settings, and it automatically labels. I was going to say name and labels, kind of create a new word, enables that. And a white solid background, so that gives you the label. Looking at our dimensions, okay, 1920 by 1080, so it is our composition size. If it wasn't, you could always change it here or go down to make comp size, but you can always manipulate this if you wanted to be something different than your actual composition size. Maybe you're doing multiple solids in the background that you want to play with. Looking next down at our units, we're going to have different units to choose. We got pixels, inches, millimeters, percent of composition. Most likely you're going to be working in pixels, maybe every now and then inches, but pixels is most likely with your graphics and images that we're going to use. And then again, after that, our pixel aspect ratio, we're going to stay there with default. You can change your color if you want. You can select and choose a different solid setting. And even if you want to match a color that you already have within your composition, you could always select the eyedropper and duplicate that. But we're going to go ahead and create this white solid, and it shows up right in our timeline. So perfect. We've got our first layer. That's easy enough, and that's where we're going to start before we go into our next video. It's going to create text.